What's up, arena friends? It's Cassie, and today I'm going to do another wrap up. I don't know what to post, so let's just post another wrap up. Woo! This month I actually did a lot of digital reading and listening. I read 6 books, and guys, I went to an Ed Sheeran concert and it was so good. Oh my god, it was so good. It was so good. If you like Ed Sheeran and he's playing anywhere near you, I would definitely recommend it because it was such a cool show and it was so good. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so pumped, and I'm like still living in it. It happened like 4 days ago, but definitely still living in it. Happened 5 days ago, and I'm still living in it. Definitely recommend Ed Sheeran if you're a fan to go and see him because, like I said, it was so good. It was so good. Okay. So I guess we're gonna start with the physical books because that's easier for me to pull up. So let's get physical. Let's just pretend that didn't happen. So the first and only physical book I read in the month of July was Invisible Monsters by Monsters. So the only physical book I read in the month of July was Invisible Monsters by Chuck Palahniuk, and this is the author of Fight Club. So if you've heard his name before, that's probably why, because we all know that's super famous, right? It's super famous. But I wasn't really sure what to expect with this, and I wasn't sure if it was gonna, if I was gonna like it at all, because it's basically about a fashion model who has an accident and half of her face is blown off, and it's kind of her coming to terms with how superficial people are and how superficial she is. It jumps a little bit. It kind of reminded me, like the setup of it kind of reminded me of Trainspotting. If you've read that book, then you know it kind of jumps here and there, and in the end you might feel like you don't really have a fully complete story, and that's kind of the way this book is. And it has a lot of high ratings on Goodreads. So, and I mean, it was a guy who lent me this. So even if you're a guy and you think, how fashion models, what does that have to do with me? Maybe give it a try, because it has a little more to do with people and how superficial they are, and kind of finding meaning in life when you don't think there is any, and new beginnings and that sort of thing. So I definitely would give this one, I think I gave it 3 or 4 stars. Definitely give it a try, and that was the first and only physical book I read in the month of July. However, that was not the only book I read. I read lots of books this month. Well, compared to the last months, I read lots of books this month. That's what matters, right? So the very first book I read in the month of July was an ebook, and I've often said that I don't like contemporary novels on this channel, and that's true. And this is not a contemporary novel, but kind of, I feel like I read werewolf novels and like cliche werewolf novels for the same reason people read contemporary. And I feel like it's just because, I mean, sometimes you just need lighthearted, easy to read nonsense, basically. So that's what this book was. And it was Alaska by Bella Johnson. And honestly, for me, this book kind of felt a little bit flat, because I do love a cliche werewolf novel, but if you're going to write a cliche werewolf novel, you have to have really good characters for it to stand on, so that there's something you can connect with that makes it different than every other exactly similar werewolf novel out there. I feel like the same goes for contemporary or really any genre. If you're going for like a hardcore cliche storyline, you have to have major character development to support it. And this just really didn't have it. Now, I know this was originally like a Wattpad novel, and to be honest, I feel like even if I had found this on Wattpad, I probably wouldn't have read it all the way through, just because it was so painfully cliche, and the characters, I just didn't really feel anything towards them. Like, it hit all the marks on the head for cliche werewolf. So for that reason, I gave this actually a really low rating. I think I gave this like a 1 or 2 stars, because I paid $6 for it, and I feel like I could have got the same, if not better, story on Wattpad for free. So I was so disappointed because this was a trilogy and I was hoping it was something I could get into, but unfortunately it doesn't look like it's going to be. I'm not going to spend the money on the next one. So the next book I'm including is the Wattpad book of the month, is Anarchy by StylesLegend. This is a Wattpad novel, as I said, and it was a 2014 Wattpad Award winner. So for you Wattpad lovers like me, you know that is probably a good story. This story basically follows, it happens in post-apocalyptic world. A lot of people were starting to disagree with each other, and essentially people started bombing the shit out of each other. And in the midst of that, there were small groups of people that were able to come together and they formed kind of colonies. So this particular novel follows two different colonies, one that go by the name of Blackwing, and they are notorious. They are known for killing whoever gets in the way or threatening the safety of their colony. They're known for having everything they need. They accomplish raids like no tomorrow. No one kind of attempts to go near them because it's not even worth trying to raid Blackwing. And then we follow Greystone, which is an accompanying or nearby sort of colony, and they're a little bit different, where Blackwing is all about family and keeping people safe. Greystone is a little bit more about survival and whatever it takes, no matter what the cost. So we're following the leader of Blackwing, and essentially they go on a raid, things get crazy, they get caught, and then life debts are owed, and things go down from there. You don't have to be a fan at all to read this. You will enjoy it. But this is a Harry Styles fanfiction. Yes, Harry Styles is the leader of Blackwing. Now, I think they mentioned his last name like once or twice, so really, if you're not a fan of One Direction at all, none of the other guys are in it, and the only reason you'd even know it's Harry is because of the gifts at the top of each chapter, and that they mentioned his last name like twice. So, as far as personality or anything goes, like, I'm not a huge One Direction fan, so I have no idea if it's accurate or not. But the actual like storyline kind of intrigued me, and then I got addicted. So even if you're not a One Direction fan, I would definitely suggest this. In fact, I feel like the only reason the author used Harry Styles was to maybe draw in more reads, make it a fan fiction. But I think if the author were to publish this without Harry Styles in it, it would be a big hit because it is so good. I would definitely recommend it. Like I said, even if you aren't a One Direction fan. I'm not like a big One Direction fan. I couldn't really tell you much about them, okay? Because there's no song references, there's no singing, there's no mention of any of the rest of One Direction, and Harry Styles' last name is mentioned like once. So you could just think it's some other Harry. Just read the first few chapters and see where it takes you. Because it took me right through the second novel, which was Anarchy, Annihilation, which follows Blackwing again and our main characters as they're trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic world, but shit is going down. Supplies are running out, and it's becoming more and more evident that the only way different colonies will survive is if they go to war with each other and steal or take what they need to survive. Of course, Blackwing, as we know from the last description, kind of, you know, their whole thing is about safety and keeping people alive and, you know, being a family sort of thing. But that's not the case for all the camps, and it's kind of becoming evident that they're gonna have to do some things they maybe don't want to do. If they could just change the name of the main character and just publish it, I'd buy it. I would. So the next book I read was an actual ebook, and it was a continuation. It was the third book in the Woman of the Otherworld series, and that is Dime Store Magic by Kelly Armstrong. If you've watched some of my other wrap-ups, you know that I read the first two books in this series. Now, what threw me off and what kind of disappointed me, I'm not gonna lie, was the first two novels in this series were werewolf novels. And if you haven't guessed yet, I love werewolf novels. So I was really in love with it. It was really good. And then the third book came along, and I knew things changed. Like, it wasn't always following werewolves, but this book follows witches. Now, there's nothing wrong with witches, but I really love the other characters. So to switch like this, 2 books in, it was good, but it was not great on the level of those first 2 books. I think gave this like a 4 stars, I want to say, 3 or 4 stars. The main character in this is a little bit annoying, so I mean, you know. Where the first 2 were like dealing with stuff in the supernatural world to like stop the exposure of their kind sort of thing. It's not even like it's a different werewolf pack or something. There's completely different magic. There's so many things you have to pick up and learn. And to be honest, the characters just weren't as lovable as the first 2 books. That being said, I know the 4th book is also following the witches, so I'm kinda meh. But I know there's a lot of books in this series, and my friend told me that this was probably the worst book in the series, and it was still relatively good. So I am going to try and read the other ones still and see where that gets me. But for this one, I wasn't super impressed, but I wasn't let down either because I'd kind of known what to expect going into it. This follows a young girl named Paige, who is a very, very young coven leader, and she's taken on this young girl, this young witch, I should say, after the incidents that happened in the 2nd book, and I don't want to give spoilers, so read that. But it follows her struggling to take care of this young teenager when she's only in her early 20s herself, and shit starts to go down. So she's kind of risking exposure of the coven. She's being, there's a lot of problems legal side, on the human side of things, also on the supernatural side of things, dealing with just trying to raise a kid. It is alright, like I said, but I love the first 2 books, so if you read them and you really like them, this is not the same. But I think the werewolves come up again later in the series, so I'm going to keep reading and hope that that's the case. And the last book I read in the month of July was actually a listen, and it was the Audible book Moon Called by Patricia Briggs. And my friend had recommended this series to me after she found out I loved werewolves. So yes, this is yet another werewolf novel, but this one is actually pretty good. It doesn't revolve just around werewolves. It has other things in there. There's witches and vampires and sorcerers and all the things. And this is a little more like literal. It's not so cliche, fluffy werewolf. It's it's a little bit more real, a little bit more gritty, a little bit more substance to it. So you could look at this cover and it's kind of, I didn't know what to think when I saw that cover. To be honest, I was like, that's kind of a trashy mass market paperback cover. I don't know how I feel about it. But I listened to the whole thing and it's so good, and I'm almost done the 2nd one. So I would definitely recommend this, and it follows a girl named Mercy Thompson. She is a Volkswagen mechanic, and she also is what's called a coyote, which is basically like a werewolf, but she shifts into a coyote instead. She kind of rolls with the werewolves, rolls with the vampires. She's kind of this middle ground where everyone trusts her a little bit because she doesn't really take sides. So this particular novel, she gets thrown into some werewolf troubles because she was raised by werewolves and she lives next door to a pack of werewolves. So when stuff starts to go down and her neighbor is attacked and his daughter kidnapped, she knows she has to do something to not only save him, but to also find his daughter. There is drugs, there is kidnapping, there is selling newborn wolves to other wolves. There is, and I would definitely recommend this to any werewolf lover. So with that being said, that concludes my July wrap up. I will try and find links to leave for the Wattpad stories down below if you want to give them a try. If you guys have read any of these, or if you've seen Ed Sheeran live, or you have another concert that you went to and want to rave about, let me know down below what your thoughts are on that. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!